This isn't just a video. This is a confrontation. You didn't click play by accident. Something deep inside you is done being controlled. Today, I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to expose you to the fears you've normalized, the excuses you've dressed up as logic, the life you're pretending is okay. This will sting. This will challenge everything weak in you. But if you stay, if you really listen, it might just be the moment everything changes. Fear is not real. Not in the way you think. Fear is a thief dressed as a protector. It tells you it's here to keep you safe, but all it ever does is keep you small. Fear doesn't stop death. It stops life. It doesn't guard your potential. It buries it, slowly, silently. Every day you obey fear, a part of your greatness dies. You weren't born with fear. You were taught it, trained in it, programmed to flinch, to hide, to overthink, to doubt. Every what if that paralyzed you, every voice that said you can't, that wasn't your voice. It was the echo of a world that gave up on itself and now wants you to do the same. But not you. Not anymore. If you want to destroy fear forever, you must first stop negotiating with it. You can't talk your way out of fear. You can't journal your way through it. You have to walk straight into it, because fear feeds on avoidance. It multiplies every time you step back, but it dies the second you step forward. The cure to fear is action. You don't wait to feel ready. You move while scared. You don't hope for courage. You manufacture it by deciding that nothing, not failure, not judgment, not pain, will ever be more painful than regret. That's the only comparison that matters. Because the fear of failure lasts seconds, but the regret of never trying, that stays with you for decades. It visits you in silence. It whispers when no one's around. It haunts you when you lie to yourself about being fine. Here's the brutal truth. The version of you you're scared to become, that bold, confident, dangerous version, who doesn't shrink, doesn't explain, doesn't ask for permission, that's the real you. The fear is fake, the limits are fake. The old identity, just camouflage you wore to survive a life you never wanted. So if you want to kill fear, kill the version of you who listens to it, bury the timid self who waits for signs, for validation, for certainty, burn the mask. Burn the rules. Burn the comfort. Because fear can only live where your boundaries are stronger than your desires. And the second your desire to become outweighs your desire to stay safe, fear has no more power. You want a life without fear? Good. Then walk toward everything that scares you. Make discomfort your new normal. Let rejection feel like proof that you're alive. Let risks become rituals. And let failure be the receipt that says, at least I tried. Because here's what fear will never tell you. Once you do the thing you were scared of, the fear disappears. It had no substance, no spine, just smoke and shadows. And when you pass through it, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get harder to stop. So don't wait for the fear to leave. Outgrow it, outmove it, outlive it. And if this message found you in a season of silence, of waiting, of questioning, then you already know it wasn't random. It was meant for you. So tell me in the comments, I'm not delayed, I'm being prepared. Write it boldly, because speaking it is the first step to stepping into it. You've been lied to. Well, fear doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. It's not some wise inner compass. It's a chain forged from every what if, every past wound, every time you chose silence over speaking up, comfort over courage, survival over becoming. And worst of all, you've gotten used to it. You've learned how to function with fear on your back. You've built routines around it, relationships around it, a whole identity around not going too far, not wanting too much, not stepping out of line. You've confused fear for intuition. You've confused anxiety for discernment. You've confused survival for wisdom. But deep down, something in you knows. You weren't made for this halfway life. You weren't built to be a slave to what if. You weren't born to die full of potential. You never touched because fear kept whispering, maybe tomorrow. No, you want to destroy fear forever? Then here's the truth. You don't kill fear with logic. You don't overcome it with inspiration. You destroy it by becoming the version of you that fear cannot exist in. The you who moves without permission. The you who doesn't need approval. The you who doesn't shrink in rooms that feel too big. The you who stops asking, what if I fail? And starts asking, what if I never try? Because here's the secret. Fear is not something you fight. It's something you outgrow. You don't battle the fear. You become someone it can't breathe around. Fear lives in hesitation. Fear survives in the pause between decision and action, and every time you hesitate, every time you overthink, every time you freeze instead of move, you feed it. You reinforce the lie that you are not capable, not ready, not enough. But every time you act despite the fear, you send a message to your nervous system. We're not playing small anymore. We're not obeying emotions built for a life we don't want. We're not entertaining the voice that never had our future in mind. So make a vow right now. A vow that you'll never again let fear make decisions for you. That you'll choose boldness over comfort, motion over safety, purpose over protection. Because comfort is not peace. It's paralysis with better PR. You know what's more dangerous than failure? A safe life that rots you from the inside. You know what's scarier than fear? The realization that you let it win, but not anymore. Today is not just another day. It's your declaration. That fear dies here, that you're done letting the past, the doubt, the imagined pain, the invisible judgments dictate the size of your life. You weren't born to bury it. You have to understand, fear is a master illusionist. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it doesn't show up as a monster in the room. It shows up as your own voice saying, be careful, play it safe. Now isn't the right time. And because it sounds like you believe it, you follow it, you trust it. But that voice was never yours. It was built out of past failures, secondhand trauma, things your parents said in fear, and all the years society told you to be realistic, to not shine too bright, to stay in line. The fear you feel now is just borrowed limitations, and every day you carry them, you're carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. But here's the thing, no one told you, you are not supposed to feel ready before you move. Readiness is a myth sold by fear to keep you in preparation mode for a life you'll never actually live. The truth is, courage is built in motion. You become brave by acting while you're scared. You gain clarity by moving into the unknown. Waiting to feel fearless before you take the leap is like waiting to feel warm before you light the fire. It doesn't work that way. You move first. The confidence comes after. You leap first. The wings grow in the fall. This is how people change. Not by thinking more, not by playing it safe, but by jumping before they feel qualified and building a new version of themselves in the air. There will always be risk. There will always be doubt. But if your dream isn't big enough to scare you, it's not big enough to change you. And if you don't learn to dance with fear, you'll die in comfort. That's the ugly truth. Not because you're weak, but because fear rewards stillness. It's designed to paralyze. Every time you avoid doing what your soul knows you need to do, fear claps for you, because it's winning. And here's the dangerous part. Fear doesn't need you to be miserable. It just needs you to stay the same. It knows if it can keep you on the couch a little longer, in the job you hate a little longer, in the relationship that drains you a little longer, it's already succeeded. Not by destroying you, but by delaying you. And eventually delay becomes decay. But you didn't come here to decay. You didn't wake up today just to repeat yesterday. Something inside of you knows there's more. That quiet ache you feel, that restlessness when things are fine, but your soul isn't, that's not anxiety. That's your future self trying to wake you up. That's the warrior in you banging on the walls of your comfort zone saying, enough, I'm done shrinking. That voice inside isn't trying to scare you, it's trying to rescue you from the numbness, from the smallness, from the lie that you need more time. You don't. You need more fire, more truth, more action. So let this be your line in the sand. The moment you stop handing fear your keys and start driving your own life, no more asking permission. No more letting fear disguise itself as being practical. No more worshiping safety while your dreams suffocate in silence. You want to destroy fear? You have to become a threat to it. You have to become someone who moves anyway, who speaks up anyway, who applies anyway, who walks away anyway, who dares to say this life isn't big enough for me anymore, and then builds one that is. Because fear can't survive inside a person who is fully alive. It dies in the presence of power, it crumbles in the presence of purpose, and it evaporates in the presence of movement. You weren't made to bow to fear, you were made to break it. Fear will try to resurrect itself, even after you move, even after you act, because it doesn't just live in the moment, it hides in patterns, it hides in habits, it waits for weakness. That moment you get tired, that moment you feel uncertain, that day when life hits hard and your mind goes quiet, that's when fear creeps back in. And that's when most people fold. Not because they're broken, but because they weren't ready for fear to be persistent. They thought one act of bravery would cancel it forever, but it doesn't. You kill fear once with courage, but you bury it with consistency. That's the key most people miss. You don't just take a leap, you keep walking. You don't just speak up once, you make it your new voice. You don't just act brave, you live brave. And to do that, you have to stop identifying with fear. Stop saying, I'm just an overthinker. Stop labeling yourself as anxious, doubtful, insecure, as if it's your personality. It's not who you are. It's a program, a wound, a survival script you adopted somewhere along the way. But now that script is outdated. Now it's suffocating your future. You're not shy. You're silenced. You're not lazy. You're unaligned. You're not afraid. You're uninformed about your own strength. If you could see what your life would look like 5 years from now, if you acted boldly every single day starting today, you wouldn't even recognize yourself. You'd be shocked at the things you could have done. That's what fear is robbing you of. Not just action, but transformation. Most people are never told this truth. Fear doesn't need to be conquered. It needs to be starved. You stop feeding it your attention. You stop fueling it with worst-case scenarios. You stop nourishing it with conversations that validate your limitations. And you start flooding your life with the opposite, with environments that challenge you, with people who don't let you hide, with goals that scare you, with habits that demand your evolution. You starve fear by feeding your future. That's the only diet worth committing to. And if you stay faithful to that, fear becomes background noise, a dull hum you no longer bow to, a ghost you no longer believe in. And that's when you become unstoppable, because the world isn't run by the smartest people. It's run by the bold, the people who move while others hesitate, the people who act before they feel ready, the people who let failure teach them instead of define them, the ones who know fear isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign you're close to something meaningful, close to something you were meant to do. Fear shows up the loudest when you're on the edge of something powerful. That's not the time to pause. That's the time to press harder, to move faster, to go all in. Fear will try to resurrect itself, even after you move, even after you act, because it doesn't just live in the moment. It hides in patterns. It hides in habits. It waits for weakness. That moment you get tired, that moment you feel uncertain, that day when life hits hard and your mind goes quiet, that's when fear creeps back in. And that's when most people fold. Not because they're broken, but because they weren't ready for fear to be persistent. They thought one act of bravery would cancel it forever, but it doesn't. You kill fear once with courage, but you bury it with consistency. That's the key most people miss. You don't just take a leap, you keep walking. You don't just speak up once, you make it your new voice. You don't just act brave, you live brave. And to do that, you have to stop identifying with fear. Stop saying, I'm just an overthinker. Stop labeling yourself as anxious, doubtful, insecure, as if it's your personality. It's not who you are. It's a program, a wound, a survival script you adopted somewhere along the way. But now that script is outdated. Now it's suffocating your future. You're not shy. You're silenced. You're not lazy. You're unaligned. You're not afraid. You're uninformed about your own strength. If you could see what your life would look like 5 years from now, if you acted boldly every single day starting today, you wouldn't even recognize yourself. You'd be shocked at the things you could have done. That's what fear is robbing you of. Not just action, but transformation. Most people are never told this truth. Fear doesn't need to be conquered. It needs to be starved. You stop feeding it your attention. You stop fueling it with worst-case scenarios. You stop nourishing it with conversations that validate your limitations. And you start flooding your life with the opposite, with environments that challenge you, with people who don't let you hide, with goals that scare you, with habits that demand your evolution. You starve fear by feeding your future. That's the only diet worth committing to. And if you stay faithful to that, fear becomes background noise, a dull hum you no longer bow to, a ghost you no longer believe in. And that's when you become unstoppable. Because the world isn't run by the smartest people. It's run by the bold, the The people who move while others hesitate. The people who act before they feel ready. The people who let failure teach them instead of define them. The ones who know fear isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign you're close to something meaningful, close to something you were meant to do. Fear shows up the loudest when you're on the edge of something powerful. That's not the time to pause. That's the time to press harder, to move faster, to go all in. And when you do that, when you truly start to live that way, your entire energy changes. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop walking into rooms trying to shrink. You stop asking if you're enough. You walk like someone who already is. You become a storm that fear can't survive in. And that version of you, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't run, that's who you've always been. You were just buried under layers of fear, doubt, shame, and silence. But now, that version is waking up, and every act of courage is oxygen. Every step forward is resurrection. Because you're not just listening anymore, you're awakening. And the person you're becoming is not interested in managing fear. That version of you is here to eliminate it. To treat fear like a parasite, not a pet. To stop making space for it in your thoughts, your language, your dreams. That version of you doesn't negotiate with fear. He breaks it. She walks right through it. Because once you realize fear only exists in anticipation, not in action, it loses its grip. It's never the thing itself that breaks you. It's the waiting, the hesitation, the stories you tell yourself before the moment arrives. But the moment always comes, and when it does, you're ready now. Not because the fear disappeared, but because you've decided you'll never obey it again. The truth is, most people live in the waiting room of their own life, sitting there with a ticket in their hand, waiting for permission, waiting for timing, waiting to feel safe enough to start. But that room, it's infinite. There is no voice that calls your number. No one is coming to tap you on the shoulder and say, now is the time. The door's been unlocked this whole time. The tragedy is most people never realize it. They die with their best ideas still inside them, their greatest potential untouched, their highest version unvisited, because fear had them convinced they weren't ready. But ready is a myth. You don't wait for readiness, you become it. With every decision, with every step, with every bold choice to move toward the thing that scares you the most. And you know what's wild? When you finally move, when you finally do the thing fear told you not to, you realize how weak it really was. Fear has no spine, no substance. It's a shadow intimidating in the dark, powerless in the light. And every time you face it, you collect evidence. Evidence that your mind was lying to you, that your limits weren't real, that the worst-case scenario was never as deadly as the life you were living to avoid it. That kind of evidence becomes your new identity. The identity of someone who isn't ruled by doubt, who doesn't flinch when afraid, who doesn't delay dreams for the illusion of safety. And once you stack enough of that evidence, you change. Not just what you do, but who you are. That's the real transformation. When fear stops being a barrier and becomes a compass. When the very thing that used to stop you becomes the signal to move. Imagine that. Every fear you feel becomes a green light. A nudge that says, this way. You stop asking, what if it goes wrong? And start asking, what if I miss this chance forever? You stop overthinking and start overpowering. That's where your power is. In the doing, in the stepping, in the becoming. Fear won't like this new you. It'll try to guilt you, remind you of who you used to be, the version that stayed silent, that gave up, that backed away. It'll whisper, you're changing. Good, that's the point. You weren't meant to stay the same. You weren't meant to die with your courage still unused. You were meant to outgrow the scared version of yourself, to shed your hesitation like dead skin, and to walk into the world like it belongs to you, because it does. Not because it's owed to you, but because you finally had the guts to take it. Because the most dangerous version of you isn't the one who's fearless. It's the one who feels fear and moves anyway. That's the version fear can't handle. That's the version the world tries to tame. That's the version of you that doesn't flinch when it's uncomfortable, doesn't pause when it's hard, doesn't retreat when it gets real. Because that version knows on the other side of fear is everything you've ever wanted. Not just success, not just status, but peace. The kind of peace that only comes when your soul knows you didn't run. You see, there's a kind of suffering most people live with, and they don't even know it. It's the pain of self-betrayal. the slow decay that comes from constantly ignoring your own potential, from making yourself smaller just to make others comfortable, from dimming your fire because you were told to stay humble, from not speaking the truth that's been burning in your chest just because someone might not like it. That's the real pain, not failure, not rejection, but looking in the mirror and knowing you played it safe. You abandoned the real you. You obeyed fear more than you obeyed your calling. And now the life you were meant to live is a ghost haunting you in quiet moments. That's the torment of an unlived life. But the good news, you're still breathing. You're still here, which means the battle isn't over. It means you still have time to fight back, to choose power, to choose growth, to choose you. Don't let fear win by default. Don't let it win because you never stood up and punched back. Fear thrives in silence, so start speaking. Fear thrives in stillness, so start moving. Fear thrives in perfectionism, so start failing forward. You don't need to know the whole path. You just need to take the next bold step. One decision, one shift, one uncomfortable yes. That's how the war is won. Not in one massive moment of glory, but in the quiet, gritty, relentless decision to never fold again. Let the world call you reckless. Let your old circle call you different. Let your own mind scream with doubt. You move anyway, because if you don't, fear will write your story. And trust me, fear is a terrible author. This is about identity, about who you're becoming. Because at its core, fear is not just an emotion, it's a disguise. It wears the mask of logic, caution, responsibility. But behind that mask is control, manipulation, a subtle voice that convinces you to betray yourself in small, daily ways. And over time, those small betrayals build a life you never wanted. A life where your power is quiet, your dreams are buried, and your greatness is something you only talk about when no one's around to laugh. But not anymore. Because every time you act in spite of fear, you're not just winning a battle, you're changing your identity. You're shifting from the one who waits to the one who moves, from the one who needs proof to the one who creates it, from the one who lives in reaction to the one who walks in authority. And this shift, it's violent, it's uncomfortable. You will grieve the old you. You will lose people who were only attached to your past. You will outgrow environments where fear was normal, where playing small was applauded. But that pain, that's the proof you're doing it right. That's the cost of becoming real. You've been imprisoned by narratives that never belong to you. Be careful. Don't ask for too much. Who do you think you are? Let me answer that for you. You are someone who was never meant to live invisible. You are someone who was never supposed to fold into the background. You are someone designed with fire in your chest. And if the people around you couldn't handle your heat, that's on them, not you. There comes a point where protecting your comfort becomes a crime against your calling, where staying quiet starts to rot your insides, where living for the approval of people who don't even know themselves becomes spiritual suicide. And if you're at that point now, good. That means you're waking up. You want to destroy fear forever? Then destroy the version of you that depended on it, the version that asked fear what was possible, the version that treated survival like success. Bury that version. Because the new you, the one rising out of the ashes right now, they don't negotiate with fear, they use it, they let it be a compass, not a cage. That version of you is dangerous, not to the world, but to every lie that's ever tried to keep you average. That version of you doesn't wait to be chosen. They decide they're enough now and act like it. So now the choice is yours. Stay the same and let fear write the rest of your story. Or rise now and become the version of you that fear can't survive in. Because the truth is, this wasn't just another video, it was a mirror. And deep down, you didn't need more information. You needed a wake-up call. You needed someone to say what you've been too scared to admit out loud. You're not stuck, you're scared. And it's time to move anyway. No more waiting, no more shrinking. No more apologizing for wanting more. The version of you that destroys fear forever begins right now. And if this message hits something deep, don't scroll past it. Own it. Claim it. Speak it into existence. Write this in the comments right now. I refuse to be ruled by fear ever again. Say it boldly. Because when you declare it, you begin to become it. And if your soul is still hungry for truth, for power, For the version of you who doesn't fold, don't stop here. The next video will unlock something you forgot was even inside you. Click it now, and let it remind you why fear should have never messed with you in the first place.